Good afternoon, everybody. So today, this video is a recording for week 1 of EDUC 8023, Research and Evaluation of Curriculum. So I hope you're ready to jump in to a new class, new learning. We're going to get started. So every week I will do a video unless something happens and I can't make the video, but it should be every week. So we're going to start by, I'm just going to show you this week's module, and we're just going to talk about it a little bit. So at the beginning of each module, we always have the learning objectives. And so we're good teachers, so we're going to read these objectives. We want to be able to identify and explain what an explicit, implicit, null, and extracurricular activities are, or curriculum is. And you're going to be providing examples. We want to be able to differentiate between the different curriculum approaches, managerial approach, behavioral, systems, academic, humanistic, and postmodern. So we're going to talk about those approaches to curriculum, and you're going to see that they align with your philosophy of education. We want to analyze specific curriculum types and approaches and evaluate the implications of curriculum types. So if you are a school that has a very behavioral approach to curriculum, what are the implications of that? If you are a school that has a very humanistic approach to curriculum evaluation, what are the implications of that? Because it's drastically different. And we're living in a time now where that's being seen. It changes. So then we go to our learn. So what are you going to do for the learn section? This tells what you're going to be reading. You have 2 things that you're going to be reading this week. We're going to be reading chapter 1 of Curriculum Foundations, Principles, and Issues. I hope at this point most of you have downloaded. If you didn't buy the book, it's pretty expensive if you buy it. That's why I recommended downloading it. So here is the lesson, chapter 1 that you'll be reading about theory and practice. And so you're going to be reading this chapter, and it's talking about those role of the curriculum worker, the student roles, and so forth. So you're going to read that. If you download the book, you're going to see it has some YouTube videos if you want to watch those to help you with your learning. Then you have an article that you're going to be reading called Using Context, Input Process, and Product Evaluation Models. So I'd like you to read that. And it talks about planning and implementing a service learning project and how that aligns with curriculum and instruction. And you're going to see how this aligns with some of the philosophies that you're reading about. So you have 2 things to read. And then I have some videos that you can watch that kind of explain these different models that I'm talking about, the hidden curriculum, the explicit, implicit curriculum, and so forth. So those videos may help you. I have a little video on analysis writing because you're going to do a paper about that. I put in here about expectations. So this is just something for everybody. So this is a doctoral level class. All work should be an APA. It should be written at a doctoral level. I'm going to be expecting critical thinking and analysis. It should go beyond just summarizing. We're going to be at that higher Bloom's level of evaluating, comparing, and contrasting theories and methodologies. We're going to do a lot of synthesizing of information, because when you get to that dissertation, that's what you're going to be doing, a synthesis. It should be structured, coherent. We're writing with an academic voice, not a very personal voice. We're going to be using APA. I put some websites. So I just want to put that in there because that is the expectation in all the assignments. And so academic writing is very different than just narrative writing. So we want that voice to change, and we want the discipline. We want you to use that terminology for the discipline that we're using, which is curriculum and instruction, because we're all getting that doctorate. So that is what you'll be reading. And now we get to your assignment. So already in week 1, you have some assignments. First thing you're going to do is a video introduction. This isn't a resume, but this is where I'd like you to tell me a little bit about your name, where do you live, what brings you joy, what keeps you grounded, what's a hobby that you do, what's a pivotal moment that kind of changed the direction for you in your life that you thought, this is what I want to do. Is there anyone that has shaped your sense of calling? Anyone, anything? And when have you felt most aligned with who you were created to be, who you were designed to be? You know, we just had our faculty meeting, and one of the things we talked about at Southeastern, I want you as my students to know your divine design and to help you grow in that. And you were all created, and this is one of the things that we talked about in our school-wide meeting today. You have this divine design, and you were created to solve problems in this world, whatever those problems may be. And so to do that, you have to have a certain set of thinking skills, right? And so that's what this is, just an introduction, you know, a couple minutes long. The second thing you're going to do after you do your introduction, you have a discussion post. So almost every week you'll have a discussion post, not every week, depending on the assignment. I put you explore different types of curriculum: explicit, implicit, null, extracurriculum, and then different curriculum approaches. You're going to talk about behavioral, humanistic. There's like 6 different approaches. Curriculum isn't just a syllabus. Of course, that's something, but it's not just a syllabus. So I want you to think of a real educational setting. It could be a school, it could be a course that you've had, it could be Sunday school, it could be a church setting. Describe how 2 types of curriculum were present. So you might describe about how the explicit curriculum was present, or the implicit or the null curriculum. You know, what was taught? Was anything missing? Then choose one curriculum approach from the reading and explain how it shaped that experience. So, for example, you might pick the behavioral approach. How did that shape that experience? Your original response is due to Saturday, and then you are to respond to 1 peer. You don't have to do 2, just 1 by Tuesday. Here's the rubric that I have, and I'm going to go to the rubric. Sorry, it did not show on my screen. If you look at the rubrics, you're going to know how I'm going to grade, because I do, you know, I have to set an example. And so I have rubrics for every assignments. So I'm going to look for critical thinking, depth of response, the integration of reading. So I want you to integrate the readings that you have. Is it written in a professional tone? Is the peer response thoughtful? Does it extend the conversation? Are the post and replies submitted in a timely manner so that you can engage in the audience, your peers? That's the rubric. So far you have your introductory video, then you have a video, a discussion post, and you have 1 more assignment. So let's go into that 3rd assignment. The 3rd assignment is curriculum mapping and analysis paper. So this is going to be about a 3 to 4 page paper, and that includes your references. So I mean, you'll have a title page and you'll have a reference page. So, you know, it could be 2 to 3 pages of text. This isn't an overwhelming big paper, okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to define, first, the first part is you're going to identify examples of the 4 types of curriculum. So you're going to talk about the explicit curriculum you've seen, implicit, null, and extracurricular. What have you seen of those? The second part of the paper is analyze the approach. So select one of the curriculum approaches that I'm going to talk about here in a minute. Explain how this approach is evident or not evident in whatever context you pick. Support that with examples. And then the last part is reflect on how the curriculum types and approaches influence curriculum design and delivery where you're at. Discuss how curriculum evaluation should be used to improve maybe this curriculum. And lastly, you need to use at least 2 scholarly resources to support your response. So like I said, it could be 3 to 4 pages, but actual text might only be like 2 to 3 pages of text, written text. Does need to be an APA. And then we have a rubric. Like every assignment, I'll always have a rubric for you that you can look at. And so let me show you that rubric. So we want you to be able to clearly identify and provide rich context-specific examples of all 4 types of the curriculum. Insightfully analyze one or more approach of curriculum with evidence. Providing evidence of either presence of that curriculum or an absence. Need you to reflect on implications of it, and then integrate 2 to 3 relevant peer-reviewed sources. And then I put to get full credit, flawless APA style writings, clear, academic, and well organized. So that is your that part of it. Okay, now what I'd like to do is every week I'm going to talk a little bit about the content. I won't spend a whole lot of time on this, but I want to talk a little bit about the content. So first thing I want to talk to you about are the types of curriculum approaches. And we have your book in chapter 1, it talks about 6 different types. Most of you probably see this first type as the behavioral approach. This is very observable behaviors. You know, when you think about SMART goals, you're thinking about the behavioral approach. You have skills, you have knowledge, you have objectives, and that assessment aligns with those objectives. That's what most schools do, is that behavioral approach. There's also what we call managerial approach. This is where the focus is on the organization of the curriculum. There's a lot of supervision, oversight, there's a lot of planning and evaluation. Many of our schools kind of have this approach too, the behavioral and managerial approach. There's a lot of oversight, especially with highest stakes testing and so forth. We have a systems approach, where we believe that curriculum has interrelated parts. You have outputs and outcomes, efficiency and effectiveness. So a systems approach is thinking about if you think about a sewer system, right? There are inputs, you know what those inputs are, and outputs, right? And so when we think about a systems approach to curriculum, we're looking at how all of these parts are interrelated. We have an academic approach that is more disciplinary knowledge, intellectual development. When I think of classical education, I think of it's more of an academic approach where you're really concentrating on those thinking skills, those disciplinary knowledge. Then we have a humanistic approach. This is, we say, looking at the whole child, and that's a good thing, individual growth, personal identity. But this is where right now in our world, we really got into many curriculum. We're going into this humanistic approach, and schools are kind of like, you know, we really need to get back into the back to basics, this kind of behavioral approach. So I can see us kind of shifting away from that. Then we have a postmodern approach, which is curriculum is socially constructed, where it's a lot of power and inequity. When we talk about critical race theory and so forth, that's postmodernism. And so many places in the United States really have a postmodern type of theory of curriculum. So I want you to kind of look at these approaches, because these approaches align with one's philosophy of teaching, right? Then when we think about curriculum, we think about, of course, we have the explicit curriculum, and that's what we know. I mean, that's the content. When you look at my syllabus, it's very explicit, right? We have standards, we have learning objectives, lesson plans, textbooks. That's what you see that you're teaching. But you also have the implicit curriculum. As Christian educators, this is where we can really integrate Christ in our lessons, right? Because this is unspoken lessons. These are attitudes and values. This is a school culture. And so that implicit curriculum, it can, as a Christian, that can be a very good thing, where we can promote a positive implicit curriculum, but it can also be a negative thing, right? Depending on what our values and beliefs are. So that implicit curriculum, what are the unspoken lessons that are being emphasized, but that are not said? I do a lot of observations and going into schools. And when I go into a school, I can just walk through a school and kind of know the school culture based on what I see, what's posted, what's important to a school. Then you have the null curriculum. The null curriculum is what's left out, because what's left out tells us what is not important, like what's omitted, what is not taught. So when you think about what's not being taught, you can see that this is not important to a school. So that tells you something about their beliefs and their curriculum. And then, of course, we have extracurricular, outside formal. Many times it's sports and clubs, student activities. When I was a principal, I would have a lot of after-school clubs. We would have extracurricular things like a gardening club. We had robotics club. I had a club for social skills where we kind of strategically placed some kids that really needed some help with making friends and social skills. We've had quite all kinds of different things for extracurricular activities. So that's the different types of curriculum. So as a curriculum expert, many times you're going to really kind of think about that explicit curriculum, which is important. You may be writing that, but also the implicit, the null, and the extracurricular is just as important, even if it's not written down. And so you're going to be, again, in your assignment, you're going to be reflecting on all of this as you write your curriculum mapping and analysis paper. And you're going to reflect on and write about where you need to think of a context, and you'll be writing about how you've seen explicit, implicit, null, and extracurricular curriculum, giving examples. You're going to select one of the approaches of curriculum. You're going to explain how they're evident or not evident, support your reasoning with examples from your setting, and then lastly, reflect on the influence of that curriculum design and delivery. I can tell you with the science of reading right now is a big push right now in America. If you're in education and you don't know about the science of reading, you are, okay, this is where it's at right now, right? And the science of reading is a direct response to some of the approaches of curriculum that were not direct instruction, that were not in explicitly stated, where we're like, okay, we have to explicitly teach this reading skills. It can't just, we can't spend all of our time thinking about these other approaches. And then you need to have scholarly sources to support your ideas. Okay, so that is all I can't seem to get my stop sharing. Okay, there we go. That's all I have for week 1. I hope this has helped. If you have any questions, let me know. Again, for your discussion post, initial response is due on Saturday. Your response to your peer is due Tuesday. And then your paper is due Tuesday. I would like you to do your introductory video as soon as possible. Okay? So have a wonderful day, and I look forward to learning with you.